Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, the final countdown to your wedding day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Unveiling Paradise podcast. Hello, Tessa.
Hi, Joe.
How are you doing?
Oh, so good. So excited.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited too. We're talking about something that I think, again, like if the whole point of our show is to help all of our couples, all of our listeners plan their wedding, today's a big one. We're talking about your wedding day ceremony. Now, I get this question a lot, Tessa. What does a typical ceremony actually look like? How much time do I need if you're taking photos of my ceremony? How much time do you actually need to cover what is happening? And it's kind of interesting because there's not really a clear, straightforward answer. You know, we have to talk about a lot of different things of what you have planned. I've had wedding ceremonies, and this is the weirdest thing. Like when you take pictures, you can look at the back of your camera and you can see exactly how much time has transpired between the first photo of the ceremony to the end. I've had a wedding ceremony that literally went 2 minutes and 33 seconds from start to finish.
Wow.
From when they walked down the aisle to when they said, I do, to when they were done. 2.5 minutes. That's insane, right?
It's really short. But I mean, some people want that. You know, they want it really quick. They want to be done and they want to get to the party.
Really tricky to get all those different angles in 2.5 minutes, you know? And so I guess this is kind of what we want to talk about today. Like what should be in your ceremony? How do you put together your ceremony to like make sure that you're not just like rushing through it and be able to have those really big, beautiful moments in the ceremony? What do you do if your friend is the one who is the officiant or if you're working with a professional officiant? All of these things that really come together for your ceremony. And again, I think this is the focal point of your entire day. So you want to do it right. If your ceremony's a dud.
Don't say that.
I mean, it's true. If your ceremony's a dud, you know, that's such a bummer. And so that's really what we want. We want you guys to all shine. Even if you're like scared to be in front of an audience, how do you make that thing special for everyone who is there?
But Joe, I don't think that a ceremony can ever be a true dud because it's still 2 people getting married, being in love. And so I think it's okay no matter what. But today we are going to talk about kind of the key points of your ceremony, what it looks like, some unique spins, understanding that there are so many different things that we don't have time to talk about today. A lot of the religious, the cultural elements. We're talking about a standard ceremony, what that looks like, and how you can kind of make it uniquely yours. So it's not a dud ceremony.
Nobody wants a dud ceremony. So let's get started.
Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred and Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
So Tessa, you and I have been to a lot of ceremonies.
We have, yes.
So they're kind of, I think, if this is the right way to say this, there is sort of a framework or a foundation that most ceremonies have, right? So you know you're going to have your audience, you know you're going to have your vows, you know you're going to have your kiss, you know you're going to have all these different things. So let's take a deep dive into that. Can we say framework? Does that work for you? Is it a framework or
Let's
is it?
call it an outline.
An outline. Okay. An outline that has its own framework built into it.
Yeah, the timeline of the outline with the framework.
I love it.
Let's
okay,
do that.
So now we're confused and let's move forward.
We'll confuse everyone.
All right. Okay, so we have to start with pre-ceremony. This is before the big show. Everyone is they're getting seated, you know, they're trying to figure out where to go, what side to be on. Let's talk about that.
So before we start talking about kind of the nitty gritty of where to sit or what to do, I think what you need to do with your partner is take a step back and figure out what you want your ceremony to look like. Are you following traditions, right? If you are religious, if you're Jewish, if you're Indian, if you're Catholic, there are different rules, different places to stand, different places to sit. So I think before you even kind of take that step of where you want everyone to be, figure out first, are you going to follow tradition or not? But if you're not going to follow tradition, we still have to talk about seating. Where are we putting your mom? Where are we putting dad? Where are we seating everyone? There's still a lot to talk about.
Okay, before we move on, let's talk about tradition. In my understanding, traditional Christian wedding ceremonies, or even just like civil wedding ceremonies in the US, the bride's family and friends, they sit on the left side. Is that right? And then the groom sit on
The
right side.
Yep.
Now, traditional Jewish weddings, it's actually the opposite. So the bride side is the right and the groom side is the left. If you're going to be following these traditions, you got to know which side you're going to put. And a lot of family members are always asking which is the groom side and which is the bride side or whatever it is. Like that happens a lot, right? And they just naturally gravitate to what their parents or grandparents would have done back in the day. Do we need to talk about that as a couple beforehand? Do we need to figure that out? Are we following any specific tradition?
Right. And I think it's important to have those conversations. The cool thing is there's a lot of signage and whatnot, that pick a seat, not a side kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I think a couple of things to keep in mind too is with a lot of destination weddings, you tend to have one partner that has more family that comes with the other. And I've had couples that kind of stress where, hey, my groom only has 20 people coming and I have 100. So I don't want it to look uneven. So again, it's kind of allowing people to sit wherever. It's a lot more modern than one side being for one and then one side being for the other.
Yeah, I've seen that before where everyone just gravitates to one side and it feels completely lopsided. This almost like they love this person more than the other person. That's
Yeah.
I actually just had a same-sex wedding. I had a gay wedding and I loved the signage because it was on one side of the aisle, it said groom side, and the other side, it said groom side. I was like, perfect.
I love that. You're like, good luck. Just take a seat.
Just sit down.
I love that.
And I think one more thing that I want to add, especially from a photographer's perspective, is you want everyone seated. So get enough chairs, right? I've seen weddings before where there's not enough chairs and people are kind of standing and it just kind of doesn't, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm like a little bit type A about this, but it doesn't look that pretty in photos. If you have just kind of this, like random people standing on the side, like almost like it's a car crash or something, like what's going on, gawking or whatever, have enough chairs for all your guests to sit and enjoy the ceremony, not be standing in the back.
But on the flip side, I just want to say devil's advocate, even when you have enough chairs, sometimes people won't sit and then the seats go empty and it looks bad in photos too.
Yeah,
I think.
It's an aesthetic thing for me. Like if you have all of these chairs filled, it looks great. If you have half the chairs open, it looks like people didn't show up. Make sure everyone is seated, right? Also, super important is your VIP family members. Okay, so if you have like mom and dad or whoever's going to be at the ceremony, you usually will make sure that you've reserved those seats.
For a couple of reasons, right? Number one, they're your VIP, so you want them sitting closest to you. A lot of times too, traditionally, right? Your father or someone is going to be walking you in. So you want to make sure they have a seat when they get to, because they're not seated with everybody else. Right. So if you have your family or your VIPs walking in the processional, but we've already forced everyone into seats, they're not going to have anywhere to go. So having those reserved seats in the front, I think is really important. So people know once they walk in where to go.
Right. Okay. One more thing before we move on. Unplugged ceremonies. So we've talked a lot about this before, but let's just jump into this. What exactly is an unplugged ceremony? How do you make that happen for your ceremony? I know I've seen signs. I know I've seen announcements. If you're trying to do that, like what are your tips on that?
So my thought is this, right? An unplugged ceremony is where you ask your guests to put their phones, their cameras, put them away and just be present in the moment. So no one's taking pictures, no one's taking video, no one's taking their iPad or their phones in the aisle, right? Just allowing them to be present and in the moment. This is for two main reasons. The first one, obviously, being that you want your guests to be there and being present and enjoying and watching you. The second is if they're paying a lot for photo and video, they don't want you as a guest getting in the way. So they don't, and you as a photographer, I'm sure can speak on this. You don't want someone's camera or their phone or jumping in front of you. I'm sure you've had uncle like walk in the middle of the aisle before to try to get pictures. It's a lot and they're paying a lot for photo and video. So it's asking people to be present, put their phones away, and just enjoy themselves.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've had weddings where Auntie has her iPad, like this ginormous iPad Pro, and it's like 7 feet wide. And you're like, wow, that's cool. But like you're putting it up above everyone's heads, and now it's in all the photos. So I agree with that. I actually sometimes, I don't know, this is kind of weird, but sometimes I like plugged ceremonies where you do have guests taking pictures and stuff. It kind of dates your wedding in a unique way. If you look at pictures from 10 years ago and the people who are taking pictures with their phones, like it's these little flip phones or whatever they are, and it's kind of funny because like it really does remind you what was happening in that particular time in the world when you got married. So sometimes I kind of like those kind of technologies that are involved, but I think for most, it is a distraction. It's not great for photo and video.
I mean, can't you get those pictures at like their grand entrance or, the phones will be out then.
Yeah.
So you can document it then.
Yeah. But if you are planning unplugged, our pro tip is signage, announcements, and that's it.
And my thought on signage is don't put it at the end of the aisle where it's going to then be in the pictures too. Right?
Yeah.
Like I hate that. Like move it where people enter and then say it again. But if you have it at the end of your aisle, now you have that in your, I don't know. I don't love that. I don't love that
That's so
signage.
awesome. I agree with you 100%.
Should I be a photographer?
You should be a sign manager.
I can do that. Okay, so let's assume that we've got everyone seated. We've told them to put their phones away, put their cameras away, and the music starts.
Yeah, it's go time.
It's go time. I'm at the end with the couple, with the wedding party, and the processional is about to happen. There is a normal, typical, traditional way of walking in. With that said, with so many different blended families and different types of relationships now, it's all over the place. One of the biggest conversations I have with couples is, hey, how do I factor this person in? Or I have my dog, or my grandma wants to walk me down, or my grandma's my flower girl, or I have 3 stepmoms. Like, how do I make this all work? So there's so many ways that we can make this work. Again, it is your wedding day. So it's really whatever works for you. We're going to talk about kind of traditional and then talk about different scenarios.
And I love that you said that because I think that's something that we want to talk about. Like you don't want to unintentionally exclude someone that is going to be really offended, right? So like if, I don't know, stepdad wants to walk you down the aisle or wants to walk in with mom or whatever that is, you have to pay attention to that beforehand. If you're doing that after the fact, you're putting out fires. So we never want you to be putting out fires on your wedding day. Plan it beforehand. Who are important? Like, have you talked to your parents? Have you talked to stepdad, whoever that might be beforehand, like for this specific moment?
And it's understanding that we're not saying that if you have a poor relationship with your stepdad, that you have to include them. It's having those conversations beforehand so everybody knows what to expect. It's setting expectations for the wedding day so you're not stressed and you're not thinking about it on the day of your wedding.
Yeah, and you're not offending anybody. Yeah. But if you have a poor relationship, don't invite that guy.
I mean, you can invite them. Oh, is he a jerk? Then don't invite them. He's out. Dead to me.
Not walking down the aisle, not even sitting in the aisle.
No.
Get out of it. Okay, so Tessa, let's get into this. So what, if we were to talk about like the processional, like is there some sort of traditional lineup of like who comes first, like who should be with each other? Like what does that look like on paper?
So there is a traditional way. Normally what I do with my couples is I'll talk to them first to see, obviously who is involved, who wants to be involved, and who you want to be involved. But a traditional, typical order kind of goes like this. Your officiant walks in first. They're the ones that kind of set the tone, kind of get everything started. Grandparents, if you have any grandparents that you want walking in, they'll walk in next. Parents of the groom, mother of the bride, and the mother of the bride is often escorted by someone else, either a brother, a groomsman, someone will escort her in. The groom, the wedding party, and the wedding party can be bridesmaids with groomsmen. It can be everyone kind of together, all of the groomsmen at one time, all the bridesmaids. So somehow the wedding party makes it down. Ring bearer, flower girl, and then the bride with the dad.
Okay, so really quickly going back, the groom comes in by himself because I've seen like groom entering with parents. Is that also traditional or no?
So again, that's not traditional, but it's definitely something that I would say is pretty common nowadays. So traditionally, back in, I don't know, ye old times.
Your day, right?
Yeah. Wow.
I don't even know how to spell ye.
As me.
Technically not.
Wow. Okay. All right.
We're close in age, but I'm younger. Technically, let's be honest.
That's rude.
As of right now, I am a year younger.
As of today.
As of right now, as we record this.
As of this recording.
But okay,
so
back in your ye old days.
Back in ye old times, the groom would walk in solo. Parents would walk in first. But more recently, more modern, the groom is often walking in with his parents if that's what he chooses to do.
Yeah. And so, I mean, very rarely do I see this exact lineup. There's so many modern twists on the processional. Let's actually talk about some of these things because I actually think it's really cute when the groom walks in with his parents. What are some of the other like kind of more modern twists for the procession, especially if you don't want to be boring, like ye old times?
No, ye old times like me are kind of fun. Like
so you are owning that you are ye old. Yes.
You're going to say it no matter what. I'm going to lean in, Joe.
All right.
So, okay.
Okay. So Tessa, what if parents aren't in attendance? Like, how do you manage that? Like, what is the twist on that?
Sure. So if parents are in attendance, obviously they don't walk in.
Right.
Right. So that's an easy way to just kind of cut them out. The main thing for us, and I have a lot of older couples where the parents may have already passed away, or again, their parents just for whatever reason are not present at their wedding. Traditionally, the bride walks in with her father, and that is tradition. Again, right now, more modern, there's a lot of different twists and a lot of different changes. So I've had brides that have walked in with their brother, right? Or their sister or their mom, or they've walked in with their children. If they're older and they have adult children, then they've walked them in. I've also had it where the couple has walked each other in, which I love. I love it when the couple has a small wedding. It's very intimate. They have no wedding party and they walk each other down the aisle.
Okay. What about this? And this is always, I think, the most interesting elephant in the room. What if the parents are divorced? And what if they have a step parent?
Sure.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So it depends on the relationship with each parent, right? Some couples, they're very close with their step parents and maybe not with their real parents or vice versa. So what I always tell couples to do first is really talk to your parents, step parents, half parents, whoever it is, and figure out what you want first. It's your wedding, and then figure out what they want. Because I've had couples where the stepdad wants to walk the bride in and the bride doesn't want that, right? So having those conversations before, once you figure out who you want to be involved, then it's figuring out how does that look? We've had it where, the dad walked halfway, the stepdad walked the other way. So
yeah, I've seen that. I think that's really cute.
We've also had it where the dad and the stepdad walked the bride together. They kind of worked it out. They were friends and they're like, let's do it at the same time. And I think that's really nice. I think it's nice because it shows that they're both there to support her. They're not here trying to play any ego games or, anything like that. They're there for the couple.
There's always ego though. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Like you have to make sure that I think this is the takeaway is that there's nothing that's going to be a surprise for anybody. If stepdad wants to walk you halfway down the aisle, don't talk about that on the wedding day. Have that pre-game plan, right?
Exactly.
All right. I have so many more for the processional because we see a lot of different things happening. So traditionally there's like 6 groomsmen and 6 bridesmaids. What if you have groomswomen and bridesmen where might be someone of the opposite gender that's part of your entourage? How do you make that work for the processional?
Mixed gender wedding parties are pretty common nowadays, which I love, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of mixing in, again, these are your best friends. They don't have to be all of one gender. So when they're walking in, a couple things, right? If you have this vision of how you want the wedding processional to look and it's paired up as couples, then a lot of times we'll partner the men and women together, but it may not always be like one and one. You may have 2 bridesmaids and a groomsman, or you may have a bridesman, groomsman. So, I feel like this is going to answer kind of both of your questions about mixed gender wedding parties and also uneven numbers, right? It's how do you envision your wedding party to look when they're walking in? A lot of times, if you're really concerned about it looking even and symmetrical, we'll have them walk in one at a time. Then you're never going to know.
Yeah,
if there's a bigger wedding party, if there's a bigger side than the other, and you have, say, more men than women or vice versa. So instead of all of the groomsmen or all the men walking in and then all the women, will alternate. So then you just don't realize what's kind of coming at you. So if it's mixed gender, again, just kind of alternating just to kind of, we'll alternate bridesmaids, groomsmen, bridesman, groomswomen, whatever, just to kind of keep it interesting. And then it's not as obvious that it's uneven. We also have done it, again, when there's uneven numbers, we'll pair people up and sometimes we'll do a party of 3. So if there's more on one than the other, we'll put 2 bridesmaids and 1 groomsman or vice versa. So again, the main thing is just having those people walk down the aisle. how it looks, right? How many people is totally fine, as long as we kind of have a plan again ahead of time.
Okay. And then finally, the ring bearer and the flower girls. Like we see this a lot, but like tradition is that the ring bearers have to be boys and the flower girls have to be girls. But we see so many cool twists on this. I want to talk about this, but like, what are the rules?
There are no rules, so like you said, we have seen so many different twists where I just was talking to a bride the other day and she was like, hey, I have a problem. We have 3 little boys in our wedding, but like we have no girls to throw the flowers. And I'm like, why can't they be flower boys? Like these little kids, I think they were 2 and 3. I'm like, they are going to love throwing things.
Exactly.
Right. So why not let that happen? And if you have only girls, like they can hold the rings too. So I think it's just kind of understanding that if you're not planning to have a very, very traditional ceremony, why wouldn't you kind of kick it up? And we've seen a ton of different versions of this, not just with kids, right? We've had grandmothers throw flowers, which I think is adorable. I love that one.
Yeah, I think if you're planning your wedding right now and you're on any social media, you've probably seen, like grandma who's the flower grandma, right? I love this. And I know that you have mixed feelings about this, but like sometimes we see the flower man where they come in and they have like these little, like, what do they call those? Fanny packs, right? Where they have them stuffed with loose flower petals. And it's just a full on spectacle, which I think is so fun. I've seen shot ski boys, like the shot boys, right? Where they're like passing out shots to everyone in the audience. Like that's kind of fun. I like that for me, does that set the right tone for your ceremony, right? If you want the cute little flower girls or the cute little flower boys or whatever, or you want the shot ski boys, like fit it to match the vibe of your ceremony.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing, right? As I know that there's the beer boys, the shot ski boys, right? They're handing it out. For me, that's not everyone's vibe, So you have this string quartet, they're playing very traditional. And then all of a sudden, like LMFAO is playing and they're playing shots. And it's just such a disconnect for your guests, that I think it can be fun. It can be appropriate in the right setting.
Or the right connect for your guests. It depends, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, ceremony. Couples there on site in front of everybody. Now we're ready for the main show. Let's get ready to rumble. Okay. This is the big show. This is the big thing. Let's walk through this. There's so much to talk about. I've seen so many things go right and so many things go wrong. We have to put some thought into this. Let's start with the very, very first moment that happens. Couples together.
Sure. So basically, right, the processional is done. Everybody has walked down the aisle. And again, traditionally, the bride will be given away by her father. So the officiant will ask who gives her away or who gives her to this man. And the father, and sometimes the mother will say, we do, or her mother and I do. And the bride will be handed off physically with her hand, handed to the groom.
I love this. And I'm glad we're talking about this because this is really dated. Right?
I hate this tradition.
You might hate it, but again, like if there isn't some sort of pre-thought, if somebody's walking you in and then you're just kind of there,
right? Dad's
standing there for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes and like, you can let go, Dad. Like, like we're got to move on or whatever it is. Or you're like, I don't want to do that. I'm not giving my daughter away when she gets married. That's really weird. She is going to make her own decisions. My daughter is going to be a strong, independent woman. Like, no, Dad's not giving me away. This is who I'm choosing to marry, whatever. Like that all, I think you have to have that conversation beforehand. When the two of you meet up, how do you move into the show, right? How do you move into the ceremony?
Agree. And this is exactly why I always recommend that we number one, do a rehearsal. And number two, you have a conversation with your officiant before the wedding day. Because a lot of times at the rehearsal, we will practice, but the officiant isn't always there. So if they're not there and there are very specific things you want them to say or not say, you need to have that discussion beforehand. During the rehearsal, we will kind of practice the handing off if you want to or the not. Something that I always laugh about is a lot of Asian culture, a lot of Asian families, we're not touchers, we're not huggers. So when you have that handoff and the bride or the groom is hugging their parents, it's sometimes the first time like we've hugged our parents in years. And so awesome. It's that practice of, are we handshaking? Are we hugging? Like, what does that look like?
And does it look awkward in photos or not?
Well, that's why I'm like, okay, guys, you have to practice the hug, like go harder, go in. It's important. So I think, having that practice is nice. And again, with your officiant, having that conversation of, am I being given away? Is the groom going to receive me? And is he grabbing my hand? Am I moving forward? What does that look like? Or are we not doing that? Just so everyone is on the same page.
Perfect. I love it. Okay.
Thank you.
So now everything's about to start. I think for me, I typically see this, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you're having an unplugged wedding, this tends to be when your officiant makes that final announcement. Hey guys, they've hired professionals. They want you to be in the moment, put your phones down, silence those phones too, right? Don't have those things ringing. I want to say this about ceremonies. A lot of ceremonies that I'm at as a photographer, the officiant might be a professional officiant. That's all they do. They have kind of a script. They have a song and dance that they do. The same for a lot of weddings. And then we also have what I call like the non-professionals, right? It might be the family or friend, the friend who's like so hilarious that they'd be perfect for a ceremony or whatever it might be. And I think this is really important. Like when we talk about that foundation of a ceremony, if you're not a professional and you're having your friend or family member do this, there are some things you really must do at a ceremony. Let's start with what I think is a really important one. It's the welcome. It's the welcoming everyone. What is an officiant's role for this? Like, what is that part? And why is it important?
The welcome is kind of the starting point of the whole ceremony. So before you kind of get into the meat of everything, right? It's that introduction of the couple. A lot of times, if it's a family friend or a close family member, a lot of it will be kind of a little bit of history, how they know them, how they got started, right? So it's kind of building how they got to where they are right now. Why are we all here today, right? A lot of times with the more religious ones, they'll have a little bit. A lot of times with the more religious ceremonies, there will be some prayers or again, some why behind marriage and behind what we're doing today. So the welcome is kind of a big part of building the reason and building the why that leads us to their next step, the vows, the rings, their commitment to each other. So it's kind of that opening that is needed to figure out what we're doing here today.
That if you think of being in that audience, right? You're sitting there at the ceremony. It's really nice to have maybe that personal connection between the person who's officiating and the couple and being able to offer, like, I don't know, whatever that is, that context or that humor or that, you know, that special relationship that they share together to the audience, to the, you know, the people who are watching, because I think it does set the tone. I love, and I've seen these so many times at my own weddings with my couples where they're officiant, if it's a friend, they have some really funny, almost like icebreaker moments where it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a funny story. Let's start with this. This is exactly what the couple's all about. I knew they were going to marry each other because of this, this, and this, or this happened, and this is why I knew they were a perfect fit. I love that for a welcome. And I think that's something that, like, if you can draw in your audience, if you can draw in all of your guests that are attending this wedding with that kind of icebreaker moment before they get into the heavy stuff, that's really critical. Now, professional officiants have this down, right? They have it down. They've practiced it. They've interviewed the couple with that specific intent in mind, usually. But for family members or friends, it's something that I think if you're not paying attention, you might forget. You might just jump right into the vows because you're nervous. So, you know, if you're having a family or friend do your wedding, have them listen to this episode because I think this is a really critical first point of the ceremony.
And I think on a more logistical note, one thing that I think at the welcome has to happen, and again, professionals get this, friends and families sometimes have to be reminded, is to remind the guests to sit.
Yeah.
Right? Because the bride walks in and everyone stands. And again, the friend or the family member will just start talking and everyone's kind of looking around and they don't realize that it's time to sit.
I almost forgot that when I was talking about that. We didn't talk about that, but that's absolutely something that your officiant should have in their notes. Okay, guys, you can sit down. I don't know if you've done this, but I have definitely done this before as a photographer where everyone's standing, they're about to go into their vows and you just use your hands and you're like, you can sit, you guys can sit. Like they bought these chairs for you guys to sit. And I think if you don't do this professionally, it's probably one of the most overlooked thing. Go ahead, guys, sit down.
Right, exactly. And I think that's, again, from a logistical standpoint, right? Your officiant, as we're walking through the steps of your ceremony, it's kind of a key role.
So, okay, this is not going off topic, but I want to just ask this question for you. What are your thoughts about hiring a professional officiant versus having a friend? What are the pros and cons?
Sure. We've talked about this on another episode, and I'm always leaning towards a professional just because as a wedding planner, on the logistical side, it makes my life so much easier is I know it's going to go off without a hitch. I know that they know what to do. I know that they know, in addition to being able to marry the two of you, they know how to hold a mic. They know that the video and the camera, the photos are on them, right? So they're kind of looking at the whole picture versus just the ceremony. So from a wedding planner standpoint, I'm always leaning to professionals. When we have, again, I've had some amazing weddings where the father of the bride married them. And I think that's so endearing and so special. So I love those really, really nice moments too. When you're having a random friend do it just because you don't want to pay someone, that's when I'm like, you're just kind of okay, But if there's reason, if you're like, my uncle has married every single one of my siblings, they're practiced, they know what to do. Like, I love that. Or again, when your parents are doing it or a sibling, so you can involve them. I love those. I love those special touches.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, like, I think it's about if there's a personal connection and if there's a personal story and there's somebody who's just so funny in your life that you want to have, say a few words, welcome everyone, share that story. You can also do that in concert with a professional officiant who's running the rest of the show, right? So I've seen that kind of hybrid. And I think for me, that's personally, I love that. I love that the most. All right, Tessa, I want to move into this next one. And this is really important. The vows, right? So these are your vows. I know right now it's really trendy to do private vows, but
you hate that, don't you?
No, it's not that I hate it, but for me, like the public vows are such a center point that if not the center, the gravity of your ceremony. Everyone wants to hear what you're promising to that person. If I'm the dad and my daughter is marrying, I really want to know what the promises are. Like, don't you? Like, if your daughter's getting married, you want to know what's being promised.
That's
Listen. You're not fulfilling your contract. Right? I heard what you promised.
We have it recorded. You said that you would do this.
Yes, exactly. Dishes aren't done, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's talk about the vows. Like, what are our pro tips on your vows? I have a lot. I know you have a lot. But how do we perfect that for the ceremony?
So traditionally, you have vows where you're just repeating after each other. So the officiant has a standard set and you're just saying the same thing.
Like,
so,
till death do us apart.
Pretty much till death do us part. I promise, till sickness and illness and all of this crazy stuff. But what I love now, the more modern take, is when couples are writing their own vows, they're making it personal. They're making it about each other. And again, like, it fits their vibe. And what I mean by that is some couples they'll reach out to me and they say, hey, I don't know what to write, or I don't know how serious I should be. But if you're a very funny, lighthearted person, you don't want to do a very serious right.
Till death do us part. Right?
I had that on a wedding cake a couple weeks ago and it was amazing. And I have the cake in my fridge. But it's so good. But, till death is a very trendy thing right now.
Till death.
Till death. And it's kind of that black and white wedding vibe. Like, it's an aesthetic right now. It's a look. But again, when you're writing your own vows, what I love is people are, again, making it fun. Like, I promise to let you watch the Super Bowl every year, or I promise to let you go on your girls' trip every year, whatever it is, right? It's custom and personalized to them, which I love, right? It takes it back to who you are as a couple and kind of tying into those elements versus, again, these very high vows that you're not relating to.
Right. If it's not relatable to you, it's definitely not relatable to the rest of the people that are watching and listening.
Yeah.
And judging.
They're judging. They are.
Okay. And my thing about the vows too, and I know we've talked about this before, this is the centerpiece of your ceremony. You want to look as best, as polished, as in the moment as possible. Don't use your iPhone. Don't use your iPhone, guys, because there's so many things that go wrong at this one point. You can't remember your PIN because you're stressed out. You accidentally delete all your vows. And I've seen that happen where the couple, like one person deletes their vows and they're like, oh crap, like, how do I get it back? Does anybody know how to work this phone? Like, write it on paper, tried and true. They have these cute little vow books, his and hers or whatever. And like, it's so nice to see everyone's like chicken scratch handwriting, but it's like real. It's in the moment and it's tech proof, guys. And it just looks great in photos.
I love vow books. I definitely, I've had couples read it from their phones. I've had couples write it on a sheet of paper or print it out. And those are fine. Like, you do what you got to do. But in a cute little book, I think it's a little more intentional. You took time to draft it and write it and then put it in a book, And I think for me, it makes a really cute keepsake after. You can frame that. You can put it in a little memory box. Like, you have that vow book forever. And so I like having those books after the fact as a memento of the wedding day.
Okay, so moving along, the rings, I think exchanging of the rings is another key part of the ceremony, right? I've actually been at ceremonies where the officiant forgets to do the ring exchange. Have you had that happen?
I have.
Make sure whoever's doing your wedding, guys, check the box, vows, check, rings, check. If you're exchanging lays or whatever it is, check. Okay. But for the rings, right, there is kind of a little bit of a song and dance to it. I think, like I've seen officiants that are like, okay, hold this hand underneath, this hand on top, and it's just boom, hold your finger on the ring, as you repeat these words. And for photos, it's amazing, right? Sometimes it can be kind of clunky. If you're not working with a professional and you're working with a friend or a family member, practice this at home, guys. Like what does it feel like to hold that person's hand and put that ring on their finger?
And I think that's why we do the rehearsal, especially if your officiant is a family friend or someone that hasn't done it before. We'll kind of walk through the step. And the funny thing, what I find is I will tell them, stick out your left hand to help, because when you're holding someone's hand and you're nervous and there's a lot going on, you're going to have your left hand and try to grab a hand and it's their right hand.
Right.
So you're grabbing the wrong hand. So we practice. I'm like, stick out your hand, have them practice, right? Put the ring on. We go through the whole, if you're swollen, if you're sweaty, if you can't get the ring on,
so what is your tips on that?
Well, I tell people, so don't force it. Put it on as much as you can. If you see that your partner is struggling, just stop. They can
starting to cry.
Or starting to cry or breaking a sweat. It's okay. I mean, we're in Hawaii, so it gets hot and you get swollen. And plus, if you're in a suit or tux, or you're swollen, right?
And if it's been a wedding week where you've been eating too much and drinking too much, you might be a little swollen.
You had some salt the night before, no judgment, right? But I'm like, but I always tell couples, try your best. And if you can't, just lock eyes and just know and just fix it. We actually did a wedding recently where the groom's brother was in charge of the rings and he forgot them at the hotel.
Yeah.
So we didn't even have the rings at the wedding. So we're literally in the middle of the ceremony. Everyone is cut because he's looking at us like, I don't have the ring. So we're trying to, we had, I think I gave my ring and the ring, but once they started, they just faked it. You couldn't tell.
Right.
You couldn't tell at all. But again, right, it's one part of the day. It is not the only part of the day, but a little bit of practicing just makes it go that much smoother.
I wonder how many wedding professionals have actually borrowed out their rings for the ceremony. Because I know I've had that happen before. They're like, we need a groom's ring. And you're like, I got one. Just give it back. But I feel like I'm getting extra blessings on my wedding ring.
It's getting blessed.
I might be marrying multiple people. I don't know. It's possible. I don't know what the symbolism is. But
I know. We've had to loan out our rings. We also have some fake rings that we've had also. So you never know.
When in doubt, always ask your coordinator, do you have this or that, right?
Yeah,
you might
never know what we have in our kit.
All right, let's move on. There's a lot of things I see at weddings, cultural elements that get incorporated into the ceremony, spiritual or religious elements that get incorporated. I feel like that typically happens after the exchanging of rings. Is that right?
So it can kind of be placed wherever you want. A lot of times, so in Hawaiian culture, there's a lei exchange where you're giving leis to each other. That often happens in the beginning. But again, a lot of the other ones, they're towards the end. So there's really no right place to put them.
But I feel like sometimes a lot of the blessings happen after the rings are on, or even again, in Hawaii, we have, different cultural elements where the couple will basically breathe the same breath together. So you see probably in photos, the couple's forehead and nose are together and their officiant is asking them to breathe the breath of life into their relationship. They call it honi honi, which I think is really fun to say. It probably sounds even weirder out of my mouth.
I know. It's okay.
But, I think this also can be kind of almost like a pre-closing to your ceremony, right? So if you have any of those prayers or any of those things, that tends to be kind of towards the tail end of the ceremony.
Agree. And a lot of these, I think, are just kind of that final blessing before they get pronounced, right? So the sand ceremony is a popular one where you have sand from two different vases, you pour it into one, right? And the symbolism of kind of families coming together and not being able to separate. There's the ring warming where it kind of hands a ring to everyone as a blessing. That's an Irish tradition that's really popular. The unity candle, which I think is hilarious, only in the sense that we do it outdoors and it's always so windy.
It's so bad every time. It's always
unity
gets blown up.
Candle in a church or indoors, perfect. Unity candles outside never work.
Less perfect. You know what? This is funny. I want to share this really quickly. I had a wedding recently. It was outdoors and they had these fake candles, right? That you click the button. so it was the mothers of the bride and groom. And so they click the candle on one side, the other one person clicks it, and then together they click the main candle as if they were to light it. And
That's amazing.
It was
I
really
love
funny.
that.
I don't know if it was to be humorous or it was just like, we're not going to deal with lighting a candle at the beach.
But you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. I've done so many outdoor weddings where they have this, and I've told them, but they're like, no, we want to do the unity candle. And of course, on the day, the candle's not lit. The parents are getting frustrated.
Right.
So I love that they did LED candles. It's smart. It's smart. I love that. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but in Hawaiian culture, the lei exchange is a popular one. So two things, you are either giving leis to each other, right? Just kind of exchanging leis, or you're also presenting it to your family. And I think that's a really nice tradition as well.
So I agree. And I think a lot of these things can happen before or after your vows, right? So lei exchanges and these sort of things. For me, I think there is that, like, after the rings, after the vows, you have to have that big crescendo moment. And sometimes it's a prayer, sometimes it's something that's being said. Maybe it's a unity candle, whatever. But I think you have to kind of wrap up the ceremony before the biggest crescendo moment, right? And we all know what that is.
Yeah.
The pronouncement of the couple and that big kiss. Now, this is something I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, because for all of our listeners, that big kiss can happen in a blink of an eye, or it can be amazing, powerful, moment that
Yeah.
everybody's part of. There are some rules for the big kiss, and I know you share. How long should you be planting that kiss?
So when I do the rehearsal and I talk to couples, I tell them you're going to want to kiss for 3 to 5 seconds.
That's a long time. Let's just count it out. Let's count it out. Hold on.
Mississippis, right? So one Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5
That's
Mississippi.
a lot. That's a lot. It feels like a lot. But if you do it in your head, you're like, okay. And I'm thinking through this as a photographer. 1 Mississippi, I got bing, I'm taking this shot, maybe turn it into a vertical bing. Like I'm
Right.
getting all these different perspectives of that moment.
Well, and it's understanding that if you have a photo and video team, they're both going to want that shot.
Yeah.
If you're doing a plugged wedding, a not unplugged wedding, right? So if people are taking photos and videos too, your photo and video team need extra time to make sure they get a clean shot, because someone's phone, someone's iPad is likely in their shot too. So you're just getting better odds. So the 5 Mississippi rule, you can say Mississippi quickly, but you still have to say Mississippi.
I love it. And you know what's really interesting is there's nothing more anticlimactic than when it's just a little peck. And you're
Right.
like, oh my God, we went through 30 minutes of this ceremony, built up all this, suspense and passion and these vows. And then it's like, and you're like, that's it? No, we want more, guys. You have to deliver on this one.
And I think it's also important when they're doing the kiss in the rehearsal. I always tell couples, practice that kiss. I think it's that awkward, oh my gosh, we're kissing in front of our parents, or, we've spent our whole lives not doing that. But sometimes couples, I think, are nervous. So they kind of leave that space between them, or they're not fully going, or the groom goes for it and their partner's kind of stepping back. So practice. I always tell them, get your wedding party to take pictures of you so you know what this is going to look like.
That's really awkward. I love it.
I know. The wedding party awkwardly is always into it. They're like, we got it. We're going to take pictures, because you just want to know what people are seeing when you're kissing.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I have one more thing to add, and this is really weird to say, but I'm going to say it. Everybody, no tongue on the kiss. Don't do it. It looks really weird in photos. It looks even weirder in video. Like slow-mo tongue kissing. It's really weird. Don't do that. Just hold it. Just keep that, pursed lip, and it's perfect for photos.
Gross.
Slow-mo. Gross.
Nobody wants slow. Okay, once the big kiss is done, right, then the recessional starts. So recessional being, how do we get out? How do we walk out, right? So it's almost the reverse order of how everybody walked in. Slightly different where now, obviously, the couple's together. So basically, the couple walks out first, right? So the officiant is standing to the side, the wedding party's out of the way, and the couple starts walking back up the aisle.
So it's the big kiss, and they are
Big
out.
kiss,
Yeah.
facing back out. The bridesmaids giving the bride back her bouquet. The couple's facing out. Music starts. Everyone's excited. And the couple starts walking up the aisle.
There are so many cool things you can do at this moment. Again, this is like a big moment to involve all of your guests, right? So, we see this all the time. There's the flower petal shower, or the bubble machine guns, or I guess old school used to be like throwing rice up in the air. Don't do that. I think it kills birds, guys. I don't know.
I think it's illegal in most places too. So don't throw rice.
Don't waste food.
Don't throw bird feed, you know?
Right. But so this is like, I think a really fun way that you can finish your ceremony and to bring everyone to be part of those big moments with you. That final farewell, adios, you guys are married. Let's party.
For me, bubbles are always the way to go. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's cleaner. I think it looks so pretty in photos. And I had a mother of the bride once who was talking to me and she was looking at all these photos of petals. And she's like, they just don't go high enough. She's like, how do people toss them in the air so high? And it's just that understanding that you can only toss it as high as you can toss it.
Right.
With the bubbles, with the bubble guns, like it is just going to go like forever. They're amazing. I love the bubble option. It's also keeping in mind, depending on where you get married, if you're in a church, if you're in a chapel, sometimes bubbles aren't allowed.
Okay, guys. And I think that's perfect way to end our show today. I think that your ceremony can be one of the most like scripted parts of your wedding day. You know, like there is this sort of song and dance to your ceremony, right? You want to make sure that if there is that song and dance, everybody knows the song. When are we walking in? Who are we walking in with? Is the officiant directing the send off? You know, like all of those things. Get your bubbles ready. Get your flower petals ready. We're ready to send them off. There are these kind of key things that if they happen and they happen in the right order and there's the right guidance, everything comes together. And the biggest takeaway is that you want it to be seamless, no surprises, and just be something that's epic and special for you as the couple and for everyone that's in the audience to be part of.
You know, there's a lot that happens in your ceremony. And, you know, while you want your day to feel flowing and smooth and stress-free, by doing the pre-planning, by thinking ahead, by kind of figuring out, having these conversations with your loved ones, right? How do you want this day to be? It's going to set your wedding, your ceremony up for total success.
All right, guys. Well, with that, it is a wrap. We hope you take all of our advice. Don't forget the rings. We will see you guys on another show.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.